Against a black backdrop, the National Park Service Arrowhead logo stands above the words Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park.
Hello there, this is Phillip Whiteman, longtime park volunteer. I'm out here dressed as a Confederate soldier today. I have on my tan coat and my tan and pants that the Confederates called butternut. I'm holding my rifled musket. And today I'm standing here in front of the Confederate earthworks, which look like little mounds behind me, but they were much higher at the time of the war. And of course I'm standing on the trail because we don't want people on the earthworks. They've been around since 1864 and we want to keep them there for a long time afterwards. We're going to talk about the attack that occurred here on June 27th, 1864. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the Union opened up with an artillery barrage, and then the infantry started to come. The Confederates were defending here were General Cheatham's division and General Clyburn's division against 8 brigades of Union soldiers. The attack occurs in actually 2 phases. But let me tell you about the Confederate earthworks, and to do that, let's go to the people that were here. Sergeant Stewart, 52nd Ohio, writes, "When our front line had reached the fortifications only to find a barrier which was calculated to make a weak man falter and a brave man think. The works were fringed with pikes, sharpened pins driven into logs, standing like a hayrack, pointing towards your face." Sergeant Lyman Whitney of the 34th Illinois describes the Confederate earthworks as this: "As for the obstacles that checked our assault, a slight glance was sufficient to show how rash was the attempt. First, a stand of saplings with holes bored through and 4 rows of sharpened stakes inserted, so that no matter how often rolled over, a row of these stakes were presented waist high. Next, an intricate network of young trees that had been a standing thicket were now hacked down on one side and bent forward, which stood in place with heavy stakes driven crossways into the ground. Behind this mass of fixed wooden spears was a high earthen embankment topped with a double row of heavy logs with sufficient space between them for muskets of the defenders." So the Union men describe what the Confederate earthworks and all the sharpened stakes that had been placed in front of them to slow the men down before they even got to the earthworks, so the Confederates could load and fire at them. And they did. And they also had cannon. They had cannon flanking or on the sides of the point. We're actually at a point here. It's known later after the war as the dead angle. And they had cannon firing, and the cannons made a tremendous noise that one soldier said it sounded like a rush of mad bulls running. Private Worsham of the 19th Tennessee describes also what was going on at the battle. "The cannon and the guns put out a lot of smoke." And here's what he says: "At times from the roar, the smoke of the battle, we fought neither by sight nor sound. The air was so full of sulphurous smoke we could not see, and the roar of musketry so continuous we could not distinguish the report of our own musket from the one by our side." It's so loud, and the smoke is so thick, he can't tell whether he fired his gun or the man standing next to him fired his gun. Sergeant Nixon of the 52nd Ohio refers to similar things when he says, "Firing began immediately from the crest, both musketry and artillery. The batteries opened up right and left as we pushed up the hill. Canister, shot, shells sowed the ground with rugged iron and garnished it with the dead." Now to my right, in front of General Clyburn's division, there was fighting going on there that was a little bit different than the fighting that happened here at the dead angle. Let me describe that with Sergeant Ferries of the 24th Wisconsin. "Before we got up to General Wagner's brigade, his men commenced retreating. The fire in front of us was so heavy no man could stand it. The balls flew past us and over us like a hailstorm. Our generals, too late, saw the terrible mistake that they made in order to retreat. Our loss was fearful. I never saw so many men fall so fast in all my life." Captain Smith of the 2nd Tennessee describes it as this: the enemy came within 5 feet of our breastworks and were slaughtered as our men literally mowed them down. They could not stand the steady fire of our troops in front of them. In a few minutes, fell back to their breastworks, except in front of Manning's brigade, which is where we're standing here today, where Manning's Confederates would have been. So to the right of me, the Union line held in check. They did not get to the Confederate line. And a fire actually broke out because the guns put out not only smoke, but flame. And the fire broke out, and there's Union men lying on the ground. Well, let Private Barnes describe what happened. At this stage, our Colonel Martin sang out, "Boys, this is butchery!" And mounting our headlogs with a white handkerchief, he sang out to the Yanks as well as to his own men, "Cease firing and help get out those men." And needless to add, the Federals never once refused to comply this request. Our men, scaling the headlogs as though for a countercharge, were soon mixed with the Yankees, carrying out the dead and wounded Federals with those who a few minutes previously were trying to down our shanties. Shanty being a temporary home that the Confederates were in. Together, the Rebs and Yanks had the fire beat out and the dead and wounded removed to the Federal side of the fence. That happened on that side of the line while the fighting's still going on this side of the line. Sergeant Stewart of the 52nd Ohio says, "Sheets of flame baptized us. Plunging shot tore away comrades left and right. There was no longer shoulder to shoulder. It was God for us all. We wrestled with the mountain, but our brave men were climbing steadily on uphill. Things were growing desperate. The enemy began throwing stones at us." Yes, the Confederates were running out of ammunition, and they literally picked up rocks that were in the trenches and started throwing it at the Union. Lieutenant Manley of the 1st Tennessee describes how desperate the Confederates had gotten. "Our regiment was placed in the works a single file about 2 paces apart, but we had the word passed down to us to hold the works at all hazard, and as look as if we would be pushed back by sheer force. But stand we must, and stand we did. They seemed to have had enough, and we had as much as we wanted." Colonel Dan McCook is leading his brigade, and just to the left of me, he will actually get to the Confederate earthworks, as Sergeant Stewart will tell us. Our brave colonel, urging his men on, was struck as he said, "Come on, boys, the day is won," as he reached the earthwork. He was shot about 4 inches below the collarbone in the right breast, falling outside the fortifications. Unfortunately, Colonel McCook will die of his wounds several weeks later in his home in Ohio. Private Sam Watkins of the 1st Tennessee will probably give some of the best description of what happened here. "My pen is unable to describe the scene of carnage and death that ensued in the next 2 hours. The whole force of the Yankee army was hurled against this point, but no sooner would a regiment mount our works than they were shot down or surrendered. Yet still the Yankees came. It seemed impossible to check the onslaught, but every man was true to his trust. Afterward, I heard a soldier express himself by saying he thought, quote, 'Hell broke loose in Georgia, sure enough,' unquote. When the Yankees fell back and the firing ceased, I never saw so many broken down and exhausted men in all my life." The fight only lasts a couple of hours, but it is tremendous in the action that takes place here. The Union Army will actually fall back about 30 yards from this point and remain there for the rest of the time they're here at Kennesaw Mountain. General Sherman wants to renew the attack in the afternoon, but General Thomas in charge says that the works will not be carried by assault, and 1 or 2 more such assaults that had occurred earlier would use up their army. So that's why they did not continue the assault. A couple of days later, there will be a truce in order to bury the dead. And Captain Cunningham of the Union Army describes it as this: "Next day, General Johnston sent a flag of truce to Sherman in order to have time to carry off the wounded and bury the dead who were festering in front of their lines. A truce followed, and the rebels and Federals freely participated in the work of charity. It was a strange sight to see old friends, to see old acquaintance, and in some instances brothers who had been separated for years, now pitted in deadly hostility, meet and have a good talk over old times, home scenes, and connections. They drank together, they smoked together, and appeared on the best possible terms, though the next day they were sure to meet in deadly conflict again. On the same day that the attack occurred here, General Schofield will have some men actually drive away the Confederates past Ollie's Creek. That's to the southwest of here. The next day, he will send a brigade of men over to hold on to the toehold that they now have, and they are now officially behind Joe Johnston's Confederates. On July 2nd, Joe Johnston will have to retreat from the Kennesaw Mountain line and again set up defenses as he moves back toward Atlanta as the Atlanta campaign continues. Thank you.